Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, your host for this live edition of the first official presidential debate, a special edition of the Conservative Five, brought to you by Liberty Nation News. Joining me today are some of the best political minds in the business: Tim Donner, John Clark, Graham Noble, and Lisa K. Donner. And we're going to discuss the highs and lows of the highly controversial matchup on the stage I'm Sarah Cowgill, between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Let's get this lively discussion started with Tim Donner. What were the best moments last night for Harris and Trump?
Well, I don't think this debate was so much about moments, Sarah, as it was about impressions. Kamala Harris succeeded in drawing an impressionistic painting of herself. And that meant a consistent approach to Trump. Likewise, Trump having to defend himself because the anchors were only fact-checking Kamala Harris. But there was no single gotcha moment. There was no, we finally beat Medicare, like Joe Biden said back in June. So she exceeded the low expectations, and Kamala Harris now has to be taken more seriously. But I think the debate would have been quite different if they had fact-checked not just Trump, but if they had fact-checked Kamala Harris on 5 different things that she said. At least one of them is Project 2025. That's a canard. Trump has nothing to do with that. She said he was going to terminate the Constitution, that there would be a bloodbath on day one, which referred to financial markets. She distorted the Charlottesville story once again, and then talked about Trump being a dictator on day one as if he meant that seriously, rather than with his usual sense of entertainment. So I think we have a different race now, not because of any moments, Sarah, but because Kamala Harris drew an effective, impressionistic painting of herself. Now she's going to have to fill in a lot of the details.
Well, I mean, were there any, I watched and I didn't see highs or lows, honestly.
No,
and I was going to ask, if anybody messed up. That's where I was going to go with Graham. Did you see any missteps last night, or was it pretty well scripted?
I can't say that I really did. I don't think either candidate kind of had a standout moment, if you want to describe it as that. But I don't think either one of them they didn't slip up. I mean, there were no gaffes, there were no slips. Trump managed to get in a few kind of interesting zingers that were quite entertaining. And I thought what was intriguing to me is that when he said that he was going to send Kamala a MAGA hat, for a moment there, she was genuinely amused. I thought
you took my line. I hate you.
Well, he called that from the front page of the New York Post, which actually had a picture of Kamala Harris wearing a MAGA hat on the front page of the New York Post.
I just thought it was interesting that he took her completely off guard with that, and she was genuinely amused by it, which was kind of interesting to see. But I would say the low point of the debate, really, the biggest loser in that debate was ABC, because of the dreadful way in which they conducted that debate, and the such obvious and open bias against Trump, the way that they kept. Is it David Muir, I think, who is basically a kind of a nobody outside of the media world, and even in the media industry, he's a B-lister or a C-lister, at best. And he thought this was his big moment to become an A-lister. So he was kind of showboating. And I think biggest missed opportunity for Trump actually was not calling out the moderators right there and then for the way they were handling that debate.
All right, now you took all my points. I could just turn off my lights and go home.
Nope, no, you can't. No, you can't.
All right, I'll talk then. I can talk.
Okay, go ahead. Talk.
Oh, no,
I really kind of want to hear.
Speak now, Mr. Clark. Speak now.
Lisa's going to expand on the optics, and that's
all
going
right.
to be key.
Well, to me, he seemed underprepared and she seemed overprepared. It was almost as if she had memorized a lot of stuff, and she apparently does have a good memory, because she did a pretty good job, definitely exceeded the expectations. He treated the debate kind of more like a rally, and she saw it for what it was, a debate. But it was not, in Winston Churchill's paraphrased words, his finest hour for Donald Trump. But he didn't make any serious gaffes, and he had a few good zingers. Like Graham said, the Kamala MAGA hat was one of them.
Way
But
to steal her line.
I was watching Fox a few minutes ago, and Trey Gowdy said something. He said this was the land of missed opportunities. And I think maybe he's onto something there, because Trump had a chance to personalize the immigrant situation. You know, he could talk about the individuals, the names, the people, many of them who died horrific deaths, really, at the hands of illegal migrants. Instead of talking about millions and billions and zillions of people, I mean, we can all tell that, but not everybody knows the people who have, you know, perished as a result. And I think politicians would do well to personalize stuff rather than, you know, just talking about numbers. He had a chance to bring up that he's the real unity candidate. He never brought that up with RFK and Tulsi Gabbard aboard. The Biden-Harris people just gave lip to unity, he could have said. He had an opportunity to turn the abortion question into a question about the party who protects women, those who want fair competition for their daughters in athletics, those who are concerned about female safety, and above all, that Trump sees himself as the man to provide national security, which is, let's face it, that's a key issue for many women. So I think Trey Gowdy may have had a point. It was the land of missed opportunities for Trump. That said, you know, he didn't blow anything sky high. There was nothing on the dogs and the cats, but, you know, that's just trivial. And in terms of nonverbals, well, we'll talk about that later. I'll give John a chance to talk.
That's
Well, you
fine.
know, it was funny. I watched it last night at the pub that I love to go to, and I was sitting next to this old farmer guy who's smart as a whip when it comes to. He may not have teeth, but he's smart as a whip when it comes to politics. And he just looked at me and he said, "Sarah, does he think he's still debating?" And I thought, yes, he's waiting for her to mess up, and she didn't. She started high and stayed high.
Again,
So,
he
thought
thought
that
it
was an interesting point.
Didn't you think he talked like it was a rally more than it was a debate?
I saw that a little bit too, but when Rando said that, it was just like, wow, that was pretty astute to, you know, he hasn't changed the way
No.
he's campaigning.
I don't
It's
even
his
remember.
signature hyperbole.
Go ahead, John. Go.
No, that's fine. I must have been pretty drunk to not remember hanging out with you at the bar. I'm the farmer with no teeth, aren't I? But I think you have others in that category. Graham hit on something and Lisa missed it. I thought the high point was this. Kamala Harris wanted to invite everybody to his rallies. He could have said, yes, thank you. My opponent has invited you all to my rallies. Please come to my rallies. See for yourself who's telling the truth. I won't even pay you. He missed it. A lot of missed opportunities. You know, I'm an attorney. I've trained in debating. I was cringing. Don't fall into the trap of arguing about people eating cats and dogs on immigration. Don't give them these little straws that allow them to dismiss the bigger issues.
Or talk about her race.
And so many times, okay, so I thought he performed really poorly. I have been happy over recent months that he's not engaging in his brash tweets, but he saved them, I guess, for last night. Not bad, but I saw it in the media, and something that Graham said I want to hit on about the idea of the big loser was ABC News. Now, about a month ago, I wrote a piece for Liberty Nation News, little plug here, about the conflict, and that Dana Walden, the co-chair of ABC News, has a long-standing, very close friendship and donor status with Kamala. I'm wondering, though, when you have confirmation bias, Democrats watch this. They don't care. They don't even, if they even see the bias at all, they don't care because the ends justify the means. The independents, which Mark has pointed out, our great editor, today in a piece about the debate, that people maybe, or that the independents were the ones that were the biggest losers. As I watched the debate, it's all about the policies and correct. She made numerous misstatements of facts. There are fine people on both sides, and it seems to be working for them to try to win on a lie. And so what to me is curious is whether this really budged the needle at all, because you know a lot of voters aren't going to change their views, but those independents, and whether ultimately people will have seen just how incredibly biased this. And as Donald Trump said, you know, it was 3-on-1, and I saw that immediately out the gate. And so yeah, the abortion thing, he could have said, hey, you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg supported repealing Roe because it was a horrible overreach by the federal government. It should be left to states' rights. End of it, rather than start talking about, killing babies after birth, which he was saying some people have called for that. And then the announcer says, no, that's not factually true. And did Kamala Harris ever say whether she supports 7th or 8th or 9th month abortion? No, her feet were never held to the fire. I'm just curious how many of those independent voters saw that the whole thing was kind of a farce as far as actual content. And she kept baiting him. It's like half of her positions were Donald Trump bad, Donald Trump bad, Donald Trump bad. And he took the bait. And I was sad to see that. But
Well,
anyway,
there's this sense that Donald Trump, I've heard this in all the hours following the debate, that Donald Trump took the bait. But what exactly is he supposed to do when the two anchors are fact-checking him, not fact-checking? What does he have to do? He has to do the fact check, which means he has to respond
Exactly.
to her
He's put in
attacks.
that position.
So I don't
Right.
buy this idea.
well, I
this
agree, but like the
widespread idea
debate,
that he took the bait because
well, like when she said that nobody's at his rallies, he could have just ignored that. Anybody can see the truth, and it's irrelevant to the issues. For instance, I'm just saying, I think that I've watched him do it, and I watched her take the bait sometimes too. And he knew he could have maybe pushed her buttons a little better. But as Mark pointed out, she was not expected to do well, and so the expectations were very low. And the Telegraph said she was fully unburdened by what has been in her ability to sort of machinate, and she says as if she fell out of a coconut tree. But they opened with the issue of eating dogs and cats. That's the kind of thing that becomes.
Well, they didn't open with it,
a
but it was.
soundbite.
It was.
No. But the Telegraph opened with that criticism. I'm saying that's what they'll seize on for the propaganda wars to try to.
they must
to
have
dismiss the
had
fact.
they must have had a really exhaustive list of statements that Trump has made that they consider untrue. Dogs. They had an immediate response. David Muir came back and said,
No,
we
that's
have
not
checked
true.
this
The
out
city
and
mentioned-
there's no evidence that anybody was eating dogs in Ohio.
Well,
How
maybe
could he have
maybe
had
they
that
crafted
so
the question.
prepared immediately
Yeah.
to come back on
They
Trump?
knew it was coming.
Maybe they crafted the questions for him, but it really showed the one-sidedness of ABC, and that was a good article, John. I hope people go to our site, libertynation.com, and check it out, because they are hardly, unbiased, as well as NBC has the same issue. But on the item of optics, what did you guys think? I mean, it seemed to me that she strode onto the stage. She came over the halfway point to greet him.
Mhm.
I've never seen her be
saying this
anything but
morning-
incompetent. So I was shocked. I was like, who is this person?
Right.
They gave her the
Right.
juice that they've been jabbing Joe with, I think.
Well, I mean,
Everybody's
I-
been saying
I-
she looked presidential. She looked presidential.
did.
She
She
stuck
looked
out her
good.
hand. She was a little bit disarming to Trump, but he kind of went on the stage a little slower while she kind of strode, looking a little more vigorous.
Yes, he looked more reluctant to
And because
shake her hand.
because she's so committed to the pantsuit, it completely takes any kind of dress out of the whole equation. She's going to show up in a pantsuit. It's either going to be black, brown, gray, or blue. And her only individuality up until recently has been like a necklace. And even she eschewed the necklace in her nomination acceptance speech, and she eschewed it last night. So she's taking anything personal off the table in terms of looks. And that's a big issue for women. Nikki Haley, I thought, dressing the part of a prominent female politician. But what Harris has done is she's completely taken it out of the realm of discussion. And of course, he showed up in his navy blue suit and his red tie, which everybody expected. So I think the optics were kind of, it was a draw. It was a draw.
Well, I think they're
though, that-
showcasing now, the young and vigorous woman versus the old, as a lot of people are trying to push this narrative and losing his mind. And it was a stark contrast last night, I thought.
Well, that's where they go with this. We're not going back slow. That we have a tendency.
We're not going back to what we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. Not going back to that.
Not going back to make it worse.
I think recency bias leads us to think that since Kamala Harris seemed, in the eyes of most people, to have won the debate, that means she's going to win the election. But I'll tell you, to me, the most curious thing of the entire evening was not what happened in the debate so much as what happened after it, when Kamala Harris's campaign started calling for a second debate. Now,
wait, I just want to cut in for a second. I heard this morning that they actually did that before the debate started. Now, I don't know if that's
well,
true.
they pressed
Did anybody
it.
else hear that?
Well, they pressed it after the debate. Let's put it that way. They didn't
Okay.
pull back from asking for a second debate. And that's quite curious because, I mean, political behavior is such that a candidate that loses a debate wants a second debate.
Right.
The candidate that won the debate doesn't want a second debate. They want to stand with what they've already done. Harris is pushing for a second debate tells me that she has yet to close the deal, that the internal polling in their campaign is such that they need more exposure. They need to put more meat on the bones.
Or they're posturing and they don't want the debate at all. And they're just pretending to be eager to have another debate where she might actually answer one question. I'm not sure if she ever actually answered a single question. And I'd just like to point out a couple things relating back to this bias issue. Bernie Sanders, you may have seen, has said that she basically has to become more moderate and lie so that she can get elected. So we kind of know what her true colors will be once in, I think. And many Americans are wondering that. And when she dodges so many questions. But here's the thing about the bias. I'm dismayed that journalism has been so eviscerated, other than at outlets like this one, of course, where we really do strive to be objective and accurate. And it's hard, but they don't even try. And I've seen so many lies recently on the media, but here's something very telling to me. It wasn't just Graham Noble and Mark Angelides who pointed out that ABC was the big loser. It was Politico covering it today.
Really?
Actually pointed it out and said, oh, the Republicans will whine about how unfair it was. And I'm not sure that the Democrats care, like I said. So maybe the swing voters noticed, but if Politico acknowledged it and actually said, it is true that ABC's David Muir and Lindsay Davis never followed up on the issue of just why Harris has changed her mind on so many issues. But they attributed it to their fact checking because he lied so much more than her. That's not true. So maybe ABC, by putting its integrity and its reputation on the line to win this election, will see its ratings drop as they should, as independent voters too can see. This was an ambush.
Well, I heard Fox on CNN, excuse me, I heard Trump on Fox this morning, and he was raving about how CNN was so unbiased compared to ABC. And I thought, wow, I guess we've seen everything now.
It's going to be ABC sucks now. I guess that'll be the new mantra at the rallies.
You know, I keep
fake ABC.
I keep coming back because I studied and followed presidential elections going way back. I'm not going to say how far back because it'll show how old I actually am. But
you want to go back and talk about FDR? I'll go with you.
Okay, in 1980, Jimmy Carter was running for re-election after what everybody thought was pretty much a disastrous 4 years from 1976 to 80. And the race, it showed that things were pretty much deadlocked, that Reagan and Carter were running pretty much neck and neck. One of them might have been ahead slightly, but not much. And then suddenly, in the last week before the election, Americans said to them, and this is the fundamental question that I think they will ask themselves in this election: do I want another 4 years of this? Do I want another 4 years of inflation, of unaffordable prices at the grocery store, of unaffordable housing prices, mortgage rates? Do I really want 4 more years of this? does it matter as much whether it's Trump or Haley or someone else, so much as what those voters in 1980 decided. As they faced the actual election day, they said, I just can't see doing 4 more years of this. So even though Ronald Reagan had been a very controversial figure, this was before the days where you had conservative talk radio or Fox News or anything. And there were great doubts about Ronald Reagan. But what people knew was that they didn't want 4 more years like the ones they had just experienced. And so a close race turned into a 44-state landslide. Necessarily what's going to happen here. But I think that people ultimately have to ask themselves, Kamala Harris may be a little different than Biden, her appearance, her presentation, her passions, if she has any, are different. But essentially, people are looking at the same administration for 4 more years. And the question is, in crunch time, when it comes down to it, do they really want another 4 years of this?
Well,
Open borders.
isn't that why she's taking the slogan, let's turn the page, let's move forward? Because she wants to distance herself from the current administration. What do you think, Graham?
Well, I still think that the question, a lot of people, okay, that the if you like, the independents or the undecideds, if there are any real undecideds at this point, of course, which itself is debatable. But okay, let's just go with independents. The question surely they're asking themselves still is, I still haven't figured out what Kamala Harris's agenda is, because it's going to be, it's going on from what Tim just said. Is it going to be just an extension of the Biden administration? Because that's, a lot of, who wants that really? Who wants that? Even if you're a diehard Democrat, do you really want to carry on in the direction we've been going? So, Kamala in this debate last night, one thing she didn't do is I often wonder what the hardcore progressives were thinking when they watched that debate. Because Kamala Harris, the way she was talking about what she wanted for the country and how she wanted to go forward, it was almost like is Trump's running mate. I mean, she was talking about all the kind of things that you would expect a conservative / Republican to say, really. Prosperity and what was it? And
opportunity
economy and all this kind of stuff. I mean, that's not progressivism right there. That's virtually conservatism / Republicanism. So there must have been a lot of progressives watching that debate last night and scratching their heads, or maybe they knew that she's just trying to deliberately come over as a moderate, just in order to get elected.
I want to go back and touch on, I don't know who brought this up. I think it was Lisa, the independent, because that's going to win this election where they land. And I was on social media all morning looking through all of the RFK sites and all of that on X and everywhere. And they're all behind Trump, whether they want to be or not, because these guys, these independent voters, that they know that's the only way to get their guy to DC and to have him make any kind of, progressive change for the nation. And so they're like all in on Trump, the RFK Jr.
I was going to say, you mean RFK people? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that's true. I mean, I think it's largely true, but that's why I was a little disappointed that there wasn't a shout out to them. I think they would have liked to have heard their candidate. I actually know some RFK married couples who were big RFK fans, and then he went to Trump, and one said yay, and the other said, hey, I'm going to the Harris convention.
No, I think she's right, John. I believe that the polls show that Trump carries the independents.
Oh no,
by
I think
8
most.
points.
Oh no, I agree. I think so. But even within the Kennedy camp, you can't take them for granted, is all I'm saying. And I think there are 2 metrics here that ties into what Tim was saying. We can look at what's important for voters, and you may have seen some of the videos where people are asking voters, liberal voters, even at the convention, which do you choose, abortion or democracy? Which do you choose? And it's a parity, and many will say abortion. But what they've really been presented with this election, which is more important to you, abortion or the economy? I think the two metrics are this. I don't think anybody comes out of this really believing, despite all of the lipstick on a pig propaganda, that Kamala Harris is a better leader on the border or when it comes to tackling the inflation in the economy. I just don't think most
wars as well, and the threat of World War III, which now appears more present than ever.
Yes.
People have to ask themselves, they have to envision Kamala Harris as commander-in-chief of American armed forces. They have to be able to look at that and say, this is not a world at peace. This is a world.
And they still don't know who she is.
Is she
Right
gonna
now,
be-
this is a world on the precipice of, oh, holy heck, breaking out.
Right.
So the second metric I was going to say, even for people, independents or whatever, for whom abortion is a high priority issue, they still may, we know this, Bill Clinton, et cetera. The economy is a high rated issue right now. And I still think Donald Trump clearly owns it. And I don't think they've done their job of telling Americans how she's going to do a better job. And I think the liberal press is showing this. They know
she tried to get sort of as specific as she's going to get, but it's a lot of freebies. You know, we're going to give these people this and those people that, and these people this and those people that. And I'm thinking, wow, we're getting all this money because we're spending a whole lot on Ukraine and
more inflation.
Well, I mean, look at the, just look at
That's
the
democratic
debt.
politics, is
And
to promise as much government largesse to as many people as possible. And then ultimately they become dependent on that and they become lifelong Democratic voters. That's how it's always worked.
Before we get too far afield, I do want to mention every time we have a major event in the campaign, I have a small Liberty Nation focus group that I tap into. And, you know, we give you their demographics and we talk about what they had to say. Last night, my text messaging was blowing up. The whole focus group had stuff to say, but I thought this was particularly interesting and I wanted to share it with our viewers and listeners. This is a guy who is a businessman, New York businessman. He winters and he had this to say. She, Harris, prepared diligently and gets an A for effort, C for substance. Trump gets a C for effort, appeared to be a lack of enough preparation, but a B plus for substance. Trump needs to be the clear winner in the next debate to win the election, in my humble opinion. I thought that was kind of a succinct way of putting it, you know, grading them on their substance and on their lack of substance, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, let me go back to 1980 for just a second in another context, which which,
just, you know, put Duran Duran on, Lisa, and go hang out.
Yeah, I think it's really a matter here where
Michael Jackson.
In 1980, Ronald Reagan was saying all these things that he eventually did. He was claiming he would, but he was still a blank slate on the national scene. Nobody really knew what he would do. They depicted him as a warmonger, a right-wing extremist, a racist, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But they can't really do that with Trump because this is the first election we've ever seen where you essentially have two incumbents.
Yeah.
Certainly Trump has a record that people can compare the Biden-Harris record to. He's not a pig in a poke. This is not 2016 where Trump claims all these big things he's going to do. No, he's been president. You see what he's like as a president. You know what he's like. You know how he responded to COVID. You know that he basically started no new foreign conflicts and had the most peaceful term of any president in the 21st century. So he is a totally known quantity. And Kamala Harris is a totally unknown quantity, even though she's a central part of the current
She's a known
administration.
chameleon.
So
she was never anywhere. I mean, you never saw her. You never heard her. And then all of a sudden they drag her out of the
and she was
closet and they start working her. And
but Sarah, don't you think it was a surprise? I mean, we've heard word salad after word salad after word salad, and last night there was no word salad. There was very little in the way of cackling. It was very disciplined.
I think everybody was pleasantly surprised.
Once or twice. I think she got the tongs out once or twice, and she was getting ready to mix up that word salad and put some dressing on it. I mean, there was once or twice when she fell into that thing where she started repeating certain words and just like being very using an awful lot of words to say nothing much at all. But you know, generally speaking, Lisa, I agree. I mean, she's been terrible in some interviews where she's just literally, you have no idea what she's saying, but all these words are coming out.
But it
And
makes you tune out, Graham. It makes you
and-
tune out. You stop
yeah,
listening to her because it doesn't make any sense
lose
anyway.
confidence.
she certainly had
She
a
was
better handle on that
demonstrating the
last night, for
passage
sure.
of time.
May I
I
quote?
do think, though, I think it's fair to say that Kamala Harris's performance showed that she was unburdened by what has
By
been
what has been
for her,
So
which
if I might,
is she was a.
All right,
let's
Sarah,
face
we
it,
all going to
she
get on a little yellow school bus pretty soon.
She was a.
her own record.
Goodness
yeah, she was
gracious,
unbelievable.
everybody loves a little yellow school bus, don't we?
Let me just quote Mark Angelides, though, because I thought he put it deliciously in today's article that I point everybody to at Liberty Nation News. He said that Kamala, quote, managed to keep notorious word salads a bit less puzzling than usual. She also didn't deliver much beyond not failing. I thought that was a good summary.
Yeah, I did too. And just for the record, it's Mark Angelides.
Oh, did I pronounce? Hey, I
Just
get
to
the
be on
Canadian wrong too,
just
and
to
I
be on
guess
his
Yeah, you
corner.
called Andrew. a
Well, you're
moron
from
one day.
Vermont. We're
Yeah.
making
But they
exceptions
call him
here.
Angelides north of the border.
Yeah, it depends on where you're at.
So you're right, it's all in
I
the
try to
island.
learn
Well, he's
from
in
my
Vermont,
mistakes.
so he's right on the line, right?
Yeah,
I hope he'll
well,
forgive me because I was quoting him, but I will try to improve. Thank you.
No, you bring
That's
that name
okay.
out where I live, and they'll just go, "That guy named Mark." They'll skip the last part.
Yeah, that British guy.
That British guy.
Archimedes would not have
great
approved.
piece.
Of course, then they get him
Archimedes.
confused.
Wait. Listen to Graham. Do that again, Graham.
I
No.
said Archimedes would not have approved.
Maybe.
Very good. Very good.
Point taken. Thank
Okay,
you.
so back to the back to the debate. We've discussed highs, lows, and it all seemed kind of milk toast to me. I didn't see, other than the ABC people not performing well. It was very scripted. I have to say, I was surprised, not pleasantly or unpleasantly, but surprised that she performed as well as she did. And I was really surprised that Trump didn't. So when we add that all together, and now she's calling for another debate, as Tim has, was that Tim or John? Anyway,
Tim.
She's calling for another debate. Is Trump going to put that to make it right? Is he going to go ahead and go for it?
I don't think he can.
Keeping in mind one thing, and that one thing is that the second debate is not watched nearly as many times or by as many people, as the first debate. And that's
Right, I think that
totally
might be
true.
this year.
We had,
might-
and that was also frustrating, I think, for a lot of conservatives when he saved his best line for 90 minutes for the end. You know, where have you been this whole time? Because there's also a big tune out rate after the first 30 minutes. Just
Mhm.
And where
give you a
would they
heads
have
up.
it? On what network after what's happened?
Yeah, that's
won't go on
the
Fox
that's the
News.
issue.
Yeah. That's
Well, she's
I
already
thought-
rejected Fox News, so
Right.
it seems to me that it would have to be CNN, since they did a respectable job.
No, I think he might say the only way I'm doing this is if Fox does it.
Mhm.
Liberty
Well,
Nation News.
right.
Yeah, come on.
But if he does that and he said only on Fox, then she'll say no, we'll do it on CNN or NBC or CBS or whatever.
Yeah, but she
And
wants
he'll
this more
say
than he
no,
does.
and then she'll say that Donald Trump is afraid of her.
No, she wants this more than he does.
Well, evidently, because when you have a debate that was so highly lauded, the first thing you do is not to go out and ask for another debate. You bask in the afterglow. I think, again, to reemphasize a point, I think they think that her campaign thinks she had a very good night, but she is not yet at the point where people are ready to pull the lever.
Did anybody
by
see the
understanding
Insta polls?
exactly what she's going to do.
Has anybody on the panel seen the Insta polls yet? I haven't seen
I
them.
have not.
Yes.
We hear all the
Yeah, they
pundits.
show Harris won by anywhere from 20 to 25%. So,
Okay.
let me just put it this way. Nobody thought Trump, there's the argument that goes back decades about how much a debate makes a difference in an election. I mean, in 1960, you had Kennedy and Nixon. Nixon won the debate on the radio. Kennedy won it on TV because Nixon was sweating from his upper lip and he looked shadowy and he had 5 o'clock
shadow does
He
not work
looked
well on
dark and all that
television.
stuff. But I'm not sure that, they had 3 or 4 more debates, but I'm not sure that the debates really influenced that election so much.
That's an interesting point, Tim. I wondered, anybody know how significant debates are in the scheme of things? John, you study this stuff.
Yeah, and I've been actually, and just reading a lot of, not my own reaction, but other news outlets' reactions this morning. There has been a lot of discussion, depending on who you read, that no, the debate is not going to have that much of a blip impact, especially this close to the election date, and with a lot of people already having their minds made up. I don't know that means that, anybody should take it for granted that it has no impact. Clearly it has. I'm just not sure whether that means that despite posturing to want another debate, whether Harris wants to quit while she's ahead. I don't know if she could do it twice. I've just never seen her perform that well. I think I'm giving her credit, but like Mark, my expectations were not high. I would think she would just stay in the closet.
Yeah.
And I think Tim is right, because a lot of Americans, they're looking at other things. They're going to make their call on the border and the economy, for instance, on material outside of what the two of them bantered about last night, which was a very confusing exchange, by the way, about the economy. It could have been handled better, especially by Donald Trump. But that's still going to be handled. That debate is still being discussed in the facts and in the inflation and in the real numbers and in the things people are looking at. It's not confined to what's discussed in that 90 minutes.
And also I think, and we've already explored this idea a little bit, but coming back to who won the debate, who didn't win the debate, I personally thought it was kind of a draw, really. I know the general consensus is that Kamala Harris won, but as we've kind of touched upon, even a lot of the people, even Kamala Harris supporters who are very pleased probably with how the debate went, they probably still know in the backs of their minds that if Kamala Harris did win, it's because she exceeded expectations and Trump kind of barely met expectations, what was expected of him, and he did seem a little
she had different rules of the game,
a little low energy. But the real if Kamala won, she won because she outperformed. She overperformed.
It seemed like it was a contest between darkness and light, in the sense that Trump was very serious, very sober about the challenges facing this country, where she was all light and airy, and we have our best times ahead, and we're for all the people, and my client's has always been just the people.
Yeah, but that would really work if she wasn't an incumbent right now. That's where the rubber, it doesn't really make sense.
We don't know what happened before like this. We just don't know the extent to which the voting public ties her at the hip.
But as Sarah often says,
we just don't know.
The shiny new object. She's not the shiny new object in the room. She really isn't. And now
Lisa's right. I mean, Lisa's absolutely correct. People have been waiting for her to do something on her day one that she promises for 3 years.
Yeah, and John said the key word, which is she often has come off to a lot of people as a chameleon, which is, a chameleon ultimately tries to camouflage themselves so that they're not seen.
To this point, the Telegraph this morning said of her, the question was whether she can demonstrate the capacity to fill every American with transcendental joy, and has never been weird at all. That's what still stands there. She may have succeeded in that debate last night, but that does not erase her clear record and failures. So I agree with Tim.
But you know what, John? Here's the thing: a lot of Americans, and I'm not one of them, and you're not, and this panel isn't. They don't care. They vote for their party. They don't go deep. They don't look around. They hear something on some random, outlet on the internet, and they buy it. So, it's really hard to re-educate people on the realities of what we're looking at, a duopoly that, people are just upset with and angry with.
Let me, if if you would indulge me, I wanted to go back to something that Graham had talked about earlier, and that is the electorate and how many people are undecided at this point in time. And there's always a tendency, especially in a climate that is as divisive now as any time since either the Civil War or the 1960s, depending on your perspective, that people are going to vote D or they're going to vote R. But the polls have consistently shown that 3 to 5% of the population is still undecided. And the reason is because they hate both candidates. They want to vote, but they find it very difficult to pull the lever for either Trump or Biden and now Harris. So 3 to 5%, if the turnout is anywhere near the 154 million that it was in 2020, that's up to 7 million people who have yet to decide. Now, you could say maybe they really have it. They're just saying they haven't. But put yourself in the position of the average voter, bringing back Trump, bringing the number 2 from the current administration, and they're trying to process all of this. It's no wonder that they haven't decided yet. And I think this idea that everybody is already in their camp is true to about 95%. I don't think any Republican who supported Trump is not going to because of this debate, or that any Democrat who was going to vote for Harris isn't going to. I think what's going to happen is it's a lesser of two evils thing. We saw that again in 2016, where people had delivered high negatives to both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. But in the end, Trump's negatives didn't matter as much as Clinton's. So that may be another angle to view this election from.
Well, they're certainly pushing that she is a Black woman and a woman, and that's, that appeals to a lot of.
And she's a perfect age. She's 59. She's neither too young nor too old.
Yeah,
So most of these calculations about her are going to have to be on her policy, her personality, and the degree to which people trust her, because incompetence is kind of off the table now after this debate.
Yeah.
But white male Democrats are also leaving her. And Tim Walz was a horrible choice for that reason, because he's regarded as very unmanly. And so
I think that guy's weird.
Okay,
And it's
we're
hurting
going to
her.
need another hour to go down this.
We need to do everybody. Put your hand,
guys.
I want everybody to put your hands together.
Everybody, we're going to say kumbaya.
It's going to be the namaste, that the light in me.
All right, guys.
Honors the light in you.
We got to wrap this up. People are going to turn us off. That's it for our live post-presidential debate Conservative 5 panel today. Please note, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. And while you're at it, check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform. YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today for Free Thinking, Free Speech, LibertyNation.com.